Today, we are covering the KUMAWINK Bounce SMG. Are you tired of people who take Echo Stones and jump in their cars and drive away? Well, say no more to cars, because this gun will annihilate anything that is sitting in a vehicle. Doesn't matter what it is. Maybe they're inside the vehicle. Maybe they're behind the vehicle. Guess what? They're getting bounced on. Now, before we begin, I just want to say that this build I'm showing you is just for melting people in cars. It's not for PVE. I don't recommend this gun at all for PVE. You will be wasting your star chrome and you will be wasting your time farming for these mods. However, if you want, you can still try this gun for PVE. I mean, go and try it out and see how good this weapon is. I mean, bad. For the Cradle, we're going to be using automatic weapon enhancement, long range enhancement, tactical combo, sky operation, advantage barrier, deadly combo, bounty hunter, and bounce rampage. These two right here are just for the bounce damage increase. This one is going to be, if you kill a target that is marked, you will just increase your damage. Now, this doesn't have to be you marking the targets in PvP. Your teammates can mark your targets for you, so you will benefit from this. As for the weapon mod, you want to use targeted bounce. Bounce weak spot priority plus 300%. When you trigger bounce, it will target the player's head more than the body itself, triggering a weak spot hit. Now, I do not have a good mod at all for this. What you want to focus on is weak spot damage and weapon damage. There is violence, precision, and bounce. I recommend using bounce suffix for the weapon mod, and what you need to focus in bounce substats is bounce damage 6%, bounce trigger chance, and bounce weak spot damage. You don't want to focus on crit damage. It's more important to go for weak spot, as crit is not guaranteed. And the reason for that is because, well, obviously we're killing enemies in cars by bounce, not by basic bullets, so that's why you want to have these numbers here. Same for the mask mod. You want to have precision bounce, precision suffix, or bounce suffix. You don't want to have violent. And what this does is the 6th bounce is a precision bounce and deals plus 100% damage as a critical hit. Now again, this is a mask mod, so you don't want to have violent, you want to have bounce on it. So we have a momentum up, violent, crit damage, and weapon damage increase maxed out. And what this does is gives you fire rate plus 10% for the first 50% of the magazine, and weapon damage 30% for the next 50% of the magazine. This is the best mod for the helmet for bounce. There's no other one. Why? Because it benefits from weapon damage, and bounce needs weapon damage to deal that damage. You could be using a Fateful Strike, but I mean, once you put that on, you cannot deal weak spot damage, which is going to make your weak spot damage 0 if your bounce hits the enemy. So the best one would be definitely momentum up. Now, when it comes to violent versus precision versus bounce, so again, on the weapon we have bounce suffix, on the mask we have bounce suffix, and then the other 4 gear mods, which we have is top piece, pants piece, gloves, and boots. You want to have 3 violent and 2 precision. For the gloves, you want to use a crit amplifier, violent, crit damage, and weapon damage, of course. For the shoes, you want to have covered advance, either precision or crit damage. It doesn't matter where you put it, as long as you have 3 violent and 2 precision, you're fine. Again, the substats is weak spot damage and weapon damage. You want to have either a blue mod for the top. Honestly, I prefer weapon damage and weak spot damage because that will boost your damage more rather than get more crit. And for the pants, we have a bullet siphon, weapon damage plus 5% every 5 bullets. Consumed in the magazine grants 4% weapon damage, capped at 20%. So when you shoot the gun, your damage is going to be increasing every 5 bullets up to 20%. Weak spot damage and weapon damage on the substats. That's it for the mods. And for the calibration you need to put on the gun is either crit rate twice or weak spot damage twice. Although I prefer crit rate because the gun crit rate is very low, 23.4% without a gloves mod. But if I did put a crit damage and weapon damage crit rate of 15%, our crit rate would be 38.4, but we will lose some weak spot damage because I had a weak spot damage mod on the gloves. But any could work. You could have weak spot damage, you could have munitions amplifier. If you do go with munitions amplifier, then you would probably have to go focus on precision mods. But the mix of weak spot and crit damage is probably the best for KUMAWINK. Now, if you don't use the precision bounce mod on the mask, then you can replace this with this mod, break bounce. When a bullet hits an enemy above 50% HP, the bullet's final damage is plus 50% damage. You could be putting this Although then you would have to go with full precision instead of violence. The reason why we use violent mods is because of this one is always guaranteed as a critical hit and it does plus 100% damage. So it's always crit. That's why it's so good to use crit damage, just because of that mask mod. Now let's explain how the KUMAWINK works. You have a 25% chance to trigger bounce on a hit, and when you hit the weak spot, you'll get 15% more chance to trigger bounce on hit, so basically 40% in total. Now it says 60%, but it's based on weapons trigger chance, so that 60 is 15%. Then you will just get a passive of bounce base damage 50%, and when magazine capacity is below 50%, it says bounce trigger count plus 1. This will basically help for this mod right here. It will trigger it by plus 1, so you will have to trigger 3 bounces instead of 6 bounces to proc this mask mod special ability bounce. Now lastly, there's sharp blade pants for the bounce. They give you bounce trigger count plus 1. If you take a look at the hot dog shorts, they give you a bounce target count plus 1. What this means is that when you shoot bounce, it's gonna basically bounce from this car to another target, which means that's one target. But if you had the hot dog shorts, it will bounce twice from this target to this target right there, and it's gonna bounce from the car again to another target that's somewhere else. You can bounce 3 times basically if you have hot dog shorts on, and if you don't, then you can bounce it only twice. And in the SMG, it says when magazine capacity is below 50%, you get a bounce trigger count plus 1. But it doesn't say that you get a target count plus 1. You actually get a target count plus 1 as well, I believe. But it says bounce trigger count plus 1. So with this mask mod, if you have it, you will only need to trigger bounce 2 times, and then you will proc the mask mod basically. So if you take a look above my health bar, I have 2 number right here. If I shoot the car, we triggered bounce, boom, 2 numbers increased. So when my bullets are below 50%, we will get 3 numbers. So as you can see, let me shoot again. Watch the numbers, boom, 3. You saw that? We increased 3 numbers. So you need to trigger bounce only twice, which is gonna deal hella insane damage. So if I get in my car right now, look how much damage is popping up. You get like, that's like we're using shrapnel or something. Yeah, these pants are the best. Sharp blade pants. You want to have those. But just remember, do you want to spend 8,000 Starchrome for that? I don't know. Now let's read what bounce does. Upon hitting an enemy with a bullet, bounce to hit a random enemy within a 10-meter radius to deal weapon damage of 60% of attack. Whatever is your base damage, that's the bounce damage you're gonna do. Now there's another mod on bounce weapon that says bounce can hit allies, but deals no damage and refills 1 bullet. You can be using this, but I don't know. It seems to just not work out. The damage becomes very low because the bullets are gonna bounce to you instead of the enemies. But you'll refill your bullets, I guess. This is how it looks like. So I'm gonna put this mod on and let's see what happens when we put it on. You can see that I'm shooting the target, bullets are bouncing everywhere. Yep, cool, nice. We have unlimited ammo, but the damage is not as much. Now we're using prickly dance pants, and what this does is bounce has a 100% chance to bounce again upon a hit, dealing 100% bounce damage. This is only for PvE. You cannot use this for PvP, for killing people in cars. For PvP, you want to use the hot dog shorts, which gives you bounce target count plus 1. It will trigger 2 bounces instead of 1, which will kill the target quicker. And if I had these hot dog shorts on, then I simply, when I shoot the dummy, you can see that the bounce doesn't bounce back to me and back to the dummy. While with these pants, it does. You can see it bounces from it to me and then back to the target. Also, the damage is so high because the weapon has 25% more damage against normal enemies. Impact deals more damage against protocell. The dummy is considered a protocell, so that's why we do 25% more damage. This works also really good against zombies, normal zombies, not deviants. But anywhere else, this gun is trash in PvE, and it's trash for melting bosses as well. All it's good for is killing players in cars, the anti-car SMG basically. And since you will be swapping presets for PvP, I don't really recommend Savior because you're gonna be the dude who's gonna be shooting, not surviving, right? You're gonna be that dude who's gonna be dealing damage. So you're gonna be running a glass cannon build for this. Now, if you want the cheap option, you go with 3 renegade parts, and then you take 2 scout parts, which will give you weapon damage on 2 parts. That's gonna be 5 total and 6 with the hot dog shorts. But if you want a little bit more expensive, you go with 3 renegade and then you go with 2 Bastille, which will give you weapon damage 10% and reload speed 20%. However, if your HP is below 70%, you will gain no damage at all, making the first part useless. Bounce is getting a rework soon, I think, in the new season, so we'll see how that goes. Ladies and gents, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care, and peace out.